right, we are back live for another exciting week of GPS Live here. It just so happens to be the week of March 24th, 2023. Hey everybody, my name is Jonathan Singer, and I have my guest Adrian with me today. How's it going, man?
Hey, how are you? Thanks for having me
Hey,
on.
yeah, thanks. You want to tell us a little bit about yourself? Introduce yourself here.
Yeah, I like long walks on the beach. I am a nerd.
I love it.
Big time nerd. Also big time football fan, so fly Eagles fly.
Oh
I,
man,
I just isolated 90% of the audience probably, so big time.
that's okay. I hear enough of it around the slacks in the office. But welcome everybody tuning in online. Those that are watching the recording in the future, and we appreciate you. We love interacting with our guests. Please feel free to comment whatever platform you're on, whether it's on the right of your screen or below. We'd love to hear from you. We love the interaction. And so we've had some really exciting things going on this week. But first off, what's really interesting is actually Adrian, you and I, we're in the same neck of the woods. We're both down here in Florida, enjoying this weird weather, right? It's like super chilly in the morning, super hot in the afternoon. Um, I'm loving it. How about you?
I am loving it until it is 1 o'clock and the sun is beaming and killing you. You can't go outside.
Oh yeah, like right about now,
Yeah.
over here on the East Coast. So, that before we kick things off, we do have a really quick formality. The views and the opinions expressed by the hosts of this live stream are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official opinions of GuidePoint Security. Great. Well, now that we got that out of the way, hack the planet, right? Uh, so, so as I mentioned, we have some really cool stories on this. Adrian, you and I, we were talking a little bit before the show about all the different things going on, and so being a new guest host, I'll kind of, just kind of throw stuff at you without preparing you, which is always exciting. We want to see how you handle some of this stuff. Um, but to kind of kick things off, you did actually some really good reading into our first article coming to us from Dark Reading, titled "BreachForums Shut Down in the Wake of Leaders' Arrest." And so my understanding was that there's multiple administrators, but one of them got arrested, right?
Yes. Yep. One of them got arrested for opening a site similar to something that was already open before they got arrested. And I think he was actually a very nice guy. He did a very good job for his clients, right? I mean, he specifically said, you can find this in the article, it says, with site administrators running an escrow service, ensuring that the sellers receive their funds that they requested. Listen, that's a good heart, right? You want to make sure that if you're gonna steal, you steal the right way and you do things the right way.
Yeah, and so what's interesting here, right? You mentioned that. So, and this isn't like the first time we've seen some of these things. There's a number of different kind of similar style forms to breach forms, right? Originally, there was raid forms, which essentially this kind of popped up as a replacement
Yeah,
to that one, which was earlier. Breach forms was online for only about 11 months in total, and one of the site administrators basically, came up and said, "I'm shutting this down." Because it appears that another right administrator was we'll call it compromised by the FBI's, and the jig's up. Like somebody who's in charge has
right.
been arrested, right? Has been caught, and
Yeah.
so you know it's there was kind of a series of events here, but kind of digging more into what Dark Reading was getting at. What kind of stuff was going on this site? What were we able to kind of figure out?
So right, like all these, like all the other breach forms and stuff, similar breach forms, right? They took all the information and everything. But one thing I found interesting on this one specifically, right, that was that the administrator, the one who got arrested, he said at the time that he came up with this, it was to hack the FBI systems, point out their vulnerabilities. But I mean, did he ever think that nothing was going to happen? I mean, you hack the FBI, and hey, nothing, right? And he actually admitted it too. By doing that, it literally put him number one on the FBI's radar, and it got him arrested.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird, right? You would think, if you go poking the bear, it's going to come and bite you back, and that's exactly what
No.
happened here. It is definitely interesting, and what also is part of this is there seems to be a lot of interviewing and interaction with some of these cyber criminals that were operating the website, that are running it, these individuals, and it gives a little bit of a perspective, right, for our viewers and people online to see what is going on in the minds of these website and forum operators, right, to see a little bit about what were they thinking. I mean, I agree with you. Hacking the FBI is never going to turn out well, right?
Well, I mean, you wake up on a Monday morning. What can I do that will attract the least amount of attention? Oh, I know. I'm gonna hack the FBI.
Yeah, and so we're seeing kind of like these life cycles, right? So Raid Forums, was online for quite a few years, 5, almost 7 years,
Yeah,
with massive databases of stolen information, and in fact, they even touted to be, holders of 10 billion different records, over a total number of different breaches that they hosted. But BreachForums, so famously also held some information, right? Were you able to see which what was in there that I couldn't recall what was some of the big things that Breach Forums was quote unquote selling or had access to on their site?
um,
I
they
think
had
I think it was the DC stuff, right?
so the DC stuff was one of them, and surprisingly enough, something that popped out at me was really interesting. They said one line in there. They had people's personal information as related to bail.
Interesting.
That was something that
Yeah.
actually caught me. Like one of the lines the person writing the story, when you went down, checked out their footnotes and everything, like that was something that really popped at me. But you're right. When DC people, right, you have the health information of, I mean, politicians and all the stuff,
Uh-huh.
people in public office, and you're worried because their private information became public.
Yeah,
Uh,
and you're absolutely right, because we did run a story on some of the controversial leaked data stolen from Washington D.C.'s that healthcare exchange that runs internal within, the Congress people and their office and families and things of that nature. And so this happened to be that forum that had that data for sale. So, right, it sounds to me like they were really, again, asking for a lot of attention between the politicians, which they're going to get really loud and obnoxious, and people involved in the site directly,
yeah,
trying to compromise the FBI. It sounds to me like it was only a matter of time, right?
yeah. I do like one
And
thing you said. It gives our viewers and anybody seeing this live, seeing it later on, it gives our viewers an idea as to the way that they think,
mhm.
right? And then whenever I hear something like that, whenever I see these things, I go back to Jurassic Park. The one character, he said, just because they can, should they?
Oh, absolutely, right. And it's very interesting. The article does kind of close out that although this particular site, right, Breach Forums, Onion site, right over on Tor,
Yeah,
is offline, right, it's no longer reachable. People are just kind of sitting around and wait and see what happens next, right? There were other administrators involved that are now claiming to start up new groups, move to new Telegram chats. It's almost like it's going to be a rebirth cycle again into a new community, new forum, a new place for these baddies to kind of hawk their wares, right? And so we'll start chasing that down, I imagine, here in the short future. Oh, excuse me. So with that in mind, we'll kind of flip over to the next story that we're
yeah.
featuring. And so I apologize for that first story. I'm trying to run the banner down below. Our next story is about credit card stealers being so deep in websites that you can't even see it from the surface. And so, was there anything interesting that kind of popped out to you from this article?
Honestly, it was just the way that they're doing it. That it's not just your typical, put a little skimmer on top of something else and hope for the best.
Yeah, and that was kind of what I was, we were talking before the show. I looked at it as the perspective of like, in physical credit card skimmers, there's the type that kind of sit on top that could be forcefully removed, they're intentionally meant to be visually deceptive, right? Um, Keypads, all kinds of things with little camera poke holes and stuff like that. And then there's the type of skimmers that are physically built into like the gas pumps, right? That are inside that you have to take off a lock or a panel. It's part of the wiring. And in a similar nature, attackers are now moving in that kind of hidden direction. Historically, when e-commerce sites were breached, stuff like WordPress, for instance, running WooCommerce, they would oftentimes hit it at the surface level, some kind of HTML or JavaScript that inherently was detectable, right, by a visitor, by a viewer. You can view source, you can run automation tools against some of this. But this is another level, right? This is taking it somewhere else.
Yep. No, I mean the fact that it takes the information that is sent to the server side, it it takes the encryption key, right? It has malware code added to the bottom, sends it out. A person, here, a threat actor, whatever you want to call them, they can go in, they can take the information with their own code. It's sophisticated. It
Yeah,
is.
absolutely. Absolutely. And so, right now, historically, stuff like WordPress, for instance, runs PHP. And so in PHP code, they're adding it at such a level that it's like in a module of a plugin that does the credit card processing, right? And so you have to like dig deep into it. And the PHP code added, when it was discovered and people started to kind of analyze it, it looks for um, the credit card information like in a string, like in a variable, and then it kind of captures that off to the side, right? And it puts it in an encrypted JPEG, like I'm saying a real image file. It encrypts the data, shoves it into what looks like a JPEG, and then leaves it for the threat actor to kind of walk by and recover it essentially and decrypt it later on, right?
Right. Right. Yeah, because
Yeah.
it puts their code, it puts their lines of code mixed with the credit card users. They come, they take it, they remove their information automatically. They see whatever they want from the user at that point.
Mhm. And this necessarily isn't like a new tactic per se,
No, no.
and shoving it into some kind of file, hiding it in plain sight kind of concept. Um, pardon me. But what makes it, again, different is that you have to be able to identify and detect this happening behind the scenes as like an
Right.
administrator of a website at the file system level, right? And not something that can be just kind of scanned from the surface. Um, and so this is kind of a style of campaign that we've seen in other things. In fact, historically, there was a group, Mage Cart, that was really heavy in attacking Magenta websites in a similar nature, collecting credit card information, collecting skim. Now, kind of the sidetrack. You and I were talking before the show, and you were talking, well, right? Why credit cards? Like, what is the real interest in that, right? And it sounded like, for instance, our average viewer, why would somebody buy a credit card number, right? Is where you're kind of going with it?
I was just going, yeah, I was mainly just, you and I were talking before, and I was joking around. I was like, most of America is in credit card debt. Most of
Oh,
America has very low balances. If I'm gonna go buy credit card information, I mean, I'm not gonna go and buy $61 off of someone's EBT card and hope for the best, and that's it. Like, I'm not gonna go put all that work into for a $7 credit balance.
yeah, and that's what's interesting. And to put it in perspective, right? What's going on in a lot of these criminal credit card rings is there's a collection phase, whether that's physical
Right.
skimmers, like what we were talking about with the gas pumps, or with the
Right.
keypads and stuff of that nature, or even if you give your credit card to somebody at a restaurant and they take it back to the machine rather than bringing the machine to your table, they can make a copy of it, for instance,
Mhm.
too. And so there is absolutely a collection phase, but then there's also like kind of a middle phase, which is like a validation where you may see like small charges ran against cards just to test them, to make
Yeah.
sure that they're maybe still active, to see if it will go unnoticed. There's a number of different reasons for that. And then finally it gets sold off in bulk batches, right? And, there's the idea that certain types of cards, whether it's MasterCard, Visa, American Express, Discover, things of that nature, may have varying values,
Right.
right? Like, one may be more likely to have a higher balance because of its accolade, or one may be more likely to have less detection. And so more malicious transactions can be processed before the card gets cut off. And then that's sold off in batches, 1,000, 10,000 credit cards, all American with the, if it's stolen from online, at least it's oftentimes, uh, done in with the address information, right, that you need to bill. And
Right.
so
Right.
that's
Right.
just kind of a little bit perspective on how carding, like why this stuff even still exists really today, right? And there is still sadly a market for it.
Yeah.
Um,
Sadly, there's still a need for it for them.
mhm. Yeah, and from our viewers' perspective, right, there still are a lot of protections. You as a consumer, like if you own your credit card, right, like as I mentioned, you're not held liable, right? At least for the most part, right? If somebody runs a fraudulent transaction on your credit card nowadays, most credit card companies will acknowledge, look,
Yeah.
it was stolen. You're good. Um, you know, you are as an individual will not be held for that. We'll kind of deal with it, and we'll send you a new card, and we'll kind of move on. Now they never really tell you all the time, because I've sometimes asked, how did my card get stolen? Like, have you clearly put the connections behind the scenes?
Right.
They'll never share that with me, right?
No, they want to keep the secrets.
Yeah, like it happens from time to time, but
Yeah.
um, you know, so kind of moving here along here is our next story. I'll tell you what. Do you wanna introduce this next story?
I
I'll
do
put you
and
on the spot.
I do and I don't, because it's like it hit me. I mean, I didn't fall for it, but it affects me.
It's a personal attack on you, isn't it?
Yes, yes, yes. So this one in particular, the headline is Windows 11 Sniping Tool Privacy Bug Exposes Cropped Image Content. Right. The thing about this one is the 10,000 foot view is basically a screen capture that you use the snippet tool for, and you crop it to get out, because you don't want to put your kid's face, you don't want to put private information from your background, whatever the case may be. And
Mhm.
then you save it and you send it out. Well, you're actually able to recover the cropped information using a tool that they have, and basically you see whatever you want at that point. You don't have to worry about cropping it. Nothing's private anymore. The reason I say this is hitting me at home is this was discovered on Google Pixel devices on Android. That sucks. I have a Pixel. you know,
Yeah.
but so I'm definitely testing it after this. I need to find out what's going on. But like I told you, it's a good thing, right? It helps further my discussion. I am going to get rid of my Pixel and go to an iPhone.
Yeah. And so yeah, like you mentioned, right? This kind of started out last week
Mm.
in some research around a bug in Google Pixel's markup tool, which is the tool that helps with taking a screenshot, cropping images, such stuff of that nature. And oftentimes when you take a screenshot, whether it's on your phone or on your desktop, you may not want everything. You may want to kind of box it or shrink it, and um, but the bug here is that regardless of the fact that you cropped it and shrunk it down to only the stuff you wanted to reveal,
Mhm.
there's still extra data in that image that could be recovered from the original bigger picture, right? And I tell you, I cannot wait for you to test this later, because according to the article coming to us from Bleeping Computer, there's already an online tool that you can just dump your images in that were cropped, and it will show you the recovered segment. Now, albeit very cool, not a perfect system though, right?
No.
They have a couple of samples here that
Yeah.
show that it is truly, it's partial recovery, right? It's not a full recovery, but what if? What if something was in that segment that was
Partially recovered.
recoverable that you cropped out, right?
Yep.
In fact, the article goes on to call it a couple of use cases.
Well, one thing that the article does show, the partially recovered. If you look at what the cropped image looks like to the partial, that's a lot that they recovered. So
It is.
even
It's
though
almost like
it's still partial,
50%.
right, it still recovers a lot of the image. So I will definitely be testing this out because I need to see. I like to crop pictures because I am notorious for um, taking a lot of ceiling and not enough
Uh-huh.
picture of a person. So I always crop the ceiling out. So I'm gonna definitely test that out.
Yeah, and so coming from the pixel use, now the this kind of issue rolls over into Windows 11, and that is, I hate. I'll be first to say I hate this. They always give them a name, but they've called it Acropolis, Acropolis, whatever, right? They're giving these bugs a name, and they've dubbed it Acropolis, and this applies in a similar nature to Windows 11's snipping tool.
Yeah.
Same kind of concept, right? Grab a screenshot, adjust it as needed, and save the image file, and so um, you know this is interesting, right? Because it kind of goes into more of like a technical nature of how data stored in an image, right? From a hexadecimal perspective, that when you're modifying the file or when you're handling the file, it does it with these boundaries, these I end boundaries that kind of show this is where data chunks exist. This is where image data exists. And when you're within that boundary, when you're outside of that boundary, it may be affected differently. And that's kind of why we're finding out that remnants of the original picture are still kind of lingering in a post cropped file. And so it's we're not going full vulnerability here, but this bug is very interesting in this sense, and we don't know what's going to happen next because Microsoft has said they're aware, they understand the report, and they are looking into this. And I believe, did you see anything if Google was doing the same?
Yeah, so Google, they're working on a patch to push out of cycle updates to the
Okay.
pixel devices. So they're working on something, but kind of like what we were talking about before the show, it really is only a matter of time before it comes to Apple devices.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be like some kind of process technique that if it can be
Right.
replicated on other platforms, or
Correct.
if you can safely assume that some of that kind of cropping functionality is a similar in nature to other tools,
Right.
yeah, why not? It may be discovered somewhere else. But okay, good to hear that at least from the Pixel perspective, that there is a patch rolling out. But we'll see what Microsoft has to say regarding their take on the Windows 11 perspective. Um,
One final thing I just want to add quickly here is this is all native.
okay.
So only happening on using the native tool to crop the image, right? So the snippet tool from Windows, the Photos app from Google, right? Those are the only things being affected. When you use other cropping tools, Photoshop or anything, it works perfectly fine. You can't recover anything.
And that is good, right? We always want to try to see if there's a way that we can help our listeners by
Right.
identifying potential workarounds or potential patches or things. And yes, thank you for that bit. It is really critical to know that because it's something that's specific to these native tools, right? If you are using third-party tools, it doesn't behave in the same manner. Apparently, I guess they
Right.
do it correctly. So, all right. And as we're rounding off, we have some good news for the week, right?
Yeah.
And so to go from kind of Windows 11 and Pixel devices sharing more than they should, let's talk about somebody who put their, put down the line. They said, "We're not paying," right? This is awesome, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. It definitely. I mean, they were ready for it in a sense, right?
Yeah. And so
So
very famous car company, right? Ferrari uh got a ransom demand that apparently compromised some data. Isn't that what we're seeing here?
Yeah, they got hacked. You know, ransom hackers. They came in. They said, "Pay us, give us money, and we'll give back your information." And they said, "No." Put your
Yeah.
foot down! Exclamation mark! No.
Yeah, and so Ferrari has agreed, has admitted, look, yes, we have observed a compromise, and that some information may be purportedly include stuff like customer names, addresses, emails, and phone numbers. But they do go on to explain no financial information
Right.
or information on the vehicles and
Correct.
orders and owners of the vehicles. So we're
Right.
still not necessarily able to correlate like a VIN number to an owner. It sounds
Right.
like it was more or less maybe just like a limited set of contact information or even like a mailing list, right? This wasn't the actual order processing, right?
Yeah. No, it looks like it really just took out the information that you put in. If you want more information, if you're interested on something, that type of stuff. That's really what it looks like that they took. The article does go further on to say something that I actually really enjoyed is the fact that it says and it starts off as a policy, like that phrase right there, right? As a
Yes,
policy,
policies.
right? Ferrari will not be held to ransom as paying such demand funds criminal activity and enables threat actors to perpetuate their attacks. So I like that, especially because of the fact it started as a policy, right? Because when you start as a policy, that tells you have your program in place, right? You have a model, you have something that works, and you're standing by it.
No, I love that. The fact that you're calling that out because, in a lot of cases with these compromises, whether it's ransomware, whether it's stolen data, with hush money, whatever it may be, right? They're kind of dealing with it as is. They don't know what to do. There maybe isn't necessarily a documented or written policy in place, or it's doesn't actually explain. Maybe your cyber insurance may have steps about how to proceed forward, but yeah, for Ferrari to say like, look, this is how we handle this exact situation, and we're going to follow our policy because this is what we have decided upon as a company,
Yeah,
is really really cool to hear. Now, as more information becomes available, we plan to
right,
follow and see what happens here. Now, this particular article is coming from Road and Track, right? Maybe not a normal source that we use here on the show, but
correct,
in this
correct.
case, very relevant
Yeah, yeah, of course.
to our stories. But that's our feel good moment. Is Ferrari, although compromised at a small level, is standing up to the bad guys. I love
Yeah.
it. I
Oh,
really do. It
yep.
is, and
Yeah.
so that feels good for now. And with that, we are at the top of the hour. Adrian, I really appreciate you coming on and chatting with me on this show. We had some great articles about the takedowns of, criminal forums and kind of understanding a deeper dive into some of this credit card theft and stuff like that. So, we hope to have you back on the show. What do you think?
Hey, I enjoyed it. I liked it. Thank you for the invite. I really do appreciate it. Have fun.
Awesome. And to all those out there online viewing, we appreciate you tuning in every week. This does go live on Fridays at 10:30 Pacific, 1:30 Eastern. Again, this was GPS Live for the week of March 24th, 2023. And for everybody, I am Jonathan Singer.
I am Adrian Pascual.
We will see you later. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.